these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office. Experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
for insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all. In-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths. We hold these truths.
With Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
Here's your sit rep, number 6, the situation report, just the news. And here we go. 3 days ago, the Biden administration came to an end, thankfully. In his final moments, of course, had some controversial pardons and a refusal to enforce a TikTok ban after ByteDance refused to divest, and there was no American buyers. If you were here over the weekend, you also saw that inauguration was canceled due to the cold weather. Didn't stop everyone from having a good time and celebrating the incoming president, President Trump, 47th president. A note on TikTok, again, some updates here. If you've been following our podcast, the Supreme Court upheld the law last Friday, which Congress passed into law and Biden signed some time ago. And Biden officially told reporters that they would not enforce the ban, instead leaving it up to President Trump. Finally, during the last 20 minutes of his presidency, Joe Biden granted pardons to his brothers, James and Francis Biden, his sister, Valerie Biden, their spouses, General Mark Milley and Anthony Fauci as well, and members of the House January 6th committee before leaving office. Of course, left a lot of questions. Why do you need pardons for people who haven't been convicted of anything? Makes them seem suspicious. Now, since pardoning his son Hunter in December, speculation had grown over whether Biden would extend preemptive pardons, and he did exactly that. Now, why does that matter? Well, both Republicans and Democrats, legislators and pundits alike, broadly agree that these final actions by President Biden were pretty extraordinary moves, far outside the norm of executive power. And they also point to a core message from Biden during his 2020 campaign, a promise to restore normalcy, yet those final hours seem anything but that. Now, for the new president, on his first day back in office, President Trump signed a slew of executive orders to roll back Biden policies and strengthen national security. The key areas of focus are strengthening border security, energy, and reducing federal waste, all huge wins for Texans and Americans alike. The declaration of a national emergency and addition of active duty troops at the border, like in the first term, will free up necessary law enforcement to actually control the border. So let's get into some detail. On day one, he declared a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border, ordering the deployment of 1,500 active duty troops to assist the 2,500, usually National Guard, already supporting the Border Patrol. Reports indicate it'll be Marines from California, Pendleton probably, who will treat the assignment like any emergency contingency, like in an embassy evacuation or deploying to a war zone. They will not stand by if engaged by cartels. They are allowed to fire back, it appears. He also reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy, requiring asylum seekers to stay in Mexico while their claims are processed, citing its effectiveness in reducing asylum fraud. A quick note on what it means to send the military to the border. They cannot conduct law enforcement. They will not be apprehending migrants. They largely serve as logistical support to Border Patrol, which is helpful. It frees up Border Patrol to do their job, which is actually enforcing the law. The military can build walls. They can transport migrants. They can transport via airlift as well. They can build detention facilities. They can do these kinds of things. Now, the only way that the military could, in theory, enforce the law would be by invoking the Insurrection Act. The last time that happened was after the Rodney King riots. That is not what the president is doing. In addition to that, Trump designated cartels broadly as foreign terrorist organizations, and also MS-13 and Tren de Aragua as foreign terrorist organizations. So this is more of a signal to the cartels than anything. It signals that we are serious and we're serious about coming after you. It does enable some sanctions, entry bans, and maybe increased penalties for those who support them. But ultimately, fighting the cartels, if you've heard me talk about this before, requires a whole lot more and a whole lot of of government approach. You've got to target their finances. You've got to target the corruption in Mexico. You've got to get the Mexicans to actually work with us so that our military can target the cartels. There's a lot more to be done there. On energy, President Trump declared a national energy emergency to fast-track domestic energy production, including lifting Biden's 2023 pause on LNG export permits. Trump also paused offshore wind turbine leasing, citing concerns over marine ecosystems, fishing industries, and energy reliability. and also withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement for a second time. On health policy, fulfilling a campaign promise, Trump began the process of withdrawing the U.S. from the World Health Organization, or the WHO, citing mismanagement of the COVID-19 pandemic and financial inequities. The withdrawal halts U.S. funding, which comprised about 12 to 15% of the WHO's budget. On government administration, Trump ended federal diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, ordering agencies to wind them down within 60 days. He also mandated a return to full-time in-office work for most federal employees. And moments ago, President Trump made good on a promise that he made on Inauguration Day, signing an executive order to declassify the assassination of JFK, Senator Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. So, can't wait to see those. Trump reiterated that this was long overdue. The executive order will declassify the records within the next 45 days. And in the Senate, Senator Rubio, now Secretary Rubio, was the first cabinet member confirmed with a unanimous vote, no less, and has already started his work at the Department of State. Other nominees will not have such a smooth path to their offices, as reports indicate Vice President Vance may need to cast a tie-breaking vote for SecDef nominee Pete Hegseth. But also today's news, just breaking, CIA Director nominee John Ratcliffe was also ratified. So congratulations to Ratcliffe, my former Texas colleague here in the House. Now, Rubio is already gearing up for his first international trip, prioritizing the Western Hemisphere, stopping in Panama to reinforce President Trump's comments on the Panama Canal. He'll also visit Guatemala, El Salvador, Costa Rica, and the Dominican Republic. On Monday, President Donald Trump revoked a 2023 executive order signed by Joe Biden that sought to mitigate the risks artificial intelligence poses to consumers, workers, and national security. The following day, Trump announced Stargate, a $500 billion joint venture with the tech industry to develop AI infrastructure in the U.S. So Biden's AI executive order was known as the AI Bill of Rights. It outlined guidelines for the tech industry's development of artificial intelligence. It required federal agencies to prioritize safety, security, and the prevention of discrimination in AI applications, emphasizing the protection of individual rights. It seems pretty bland, but some have criticized it in the tech world, saying it's an overreach. It has an emergency powers overreach. The administration invoked the Defense Production Act, typically reserved for wartime, to compel companies to share extensive information on advanced AI projects, which many saw as executive overreach. Also had a lack of industry input. Critics say the order was reportedly created without consulting AI companies, resulting in impractical and restrictive reporting requirements, and it had unclear guidelines. Vague directives left many companies uncertain about compliance, adding to industry frustration. So due to these issues, President Trump rescinded the executive order, effectively halting the Biden administration's approach to regulating AI. With a starting investment of $100 billion, the Trump's Stargate project focuses on building data centers and power facilities in Texas. It'll create over 100,000 jobs, and it'll hopefully help position the U.S. as a global leader in AI development. Now, interestingly, the Stargate initiative was initially conceived during the Biden administration in 2024, with early planning and permitting efforts setting the stage, but Trump is continuing that effort. Hours after the announcement, Elon Musk publicly questioned Stargate's feasibility, claiming that two participating companies, OpenAI and SoftBank, lacked the capital to fulfill these commitments. His comments underscore tensions between that particular billionaire and other billionaires and AI investors like Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI. While Stargate represents a step towards U.S. AI dominance, it'll take time to determine whether it will spur the meaningful innovation and economic growth we need. And, my take on this, you still need some meaningful regulation around AI. We've struggled in Congress to, I think, come up with what exactly that would look like. Also newsworthy, on Thursday, Trump pardons 23 anti-abortion protesters that were unfairly convicted under what's called the FACE Act by the Biden administration. Now, what's the FACE Act? I'm not even sure what it stands for. It's an acronym. It's a law from the Clinton era that allows the Attorney General to prosecute any who obstructs someone attempting to access an abortion clinic, anyone who obstructs someone from protesting an abortion clinic, and anyone who damages an abortion clinic. Now, 97% of FACE Act prosecutions between the years of 1994 to 2024 were initiated against pro-life Americans. Only 3% were toward people who tried to interfere with pro-life protests. Trump is pardoning these people because the Biden administration decided that peaceful protesters were a problem. Now, every single one of these people was nonviolent, and that's why I support Chip Roy's bill to repeal the FACE Act entirely. But I don't think we need federal law specific to abortion clinics because the First Amendment already exists. You're already allowed to protest, and it's already a state crime to vandalize or obstruct a facility entrance. So there's no need for this law in the first place. Other interesting news, SpaceX launched 2 commercial lunar landers. Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost and Japan's iSpace Resilience from Kennedy Space Center early Wednesday. This marks the first ever dual lunar lander launch on the same Falcon 9 rocket, which reduces costs for both companies. The Blue Ghost will deliver 10 NASA payloads and is scheduled to land on the moon on March 2nd. So, pay attention for that. Maybe you can see it with a big telescope, but probably not. The Resilience is a purely commercial mission and plans to land on the moon in 4 to 5 months, deploying a micro rover for lunar soil sampling and testing water electrolyzer technology. I have no idea what that is. Look it up. Also, the FDA approved Johnson & Johnson's nasal spray Spravato as a standalone treatment for treatment-resistant depression. Spravato is the first monotherapy for adults with depression who don't respond to at least 2 standard treatments. Its rapid action provides symptoms relief within 24 hours, lasting up to a month. The drug, which is related to ketamine, is administered only in certified healthcare facilities due to its potential side effects like sedation and misuse risks. Read nothing else this week, an interesting op-ed by Noah Rothman, The Resistance Left's Addiction to Hyperbole. In National Review, it's necessary to prepare yourself for the next 4 years because we will be inundated with misrepresentations, examples without context, and outright lies about Trump and administration officials. Rothman's most poignant statement, if they must exaggerate the scale of the threat, maybe there's no threat at all, I think is the most important. That's all. Hope you enjoyed your ride to work or run, and hopefully you're just a little bit more informed about what's going on in the news today.